Right now, as you watch this, you're being bid on. Not your attention, your obedience. Governments, corporations, influencers, even your closest friends are making unconscious calculations. What do I need to say to make this person comply? Most people live their entire lives never realizing they're the product, not the customer. But what if I told you the auction has rules? 10 rules, actually. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. You'll watch conversations differently. You'll recognize manipulation before it reaches your nervous system. You'll become, for the first time, genuinely free. But freedom has a cost. You'll lose your comforting illusions. Still here? Good. Let's begin. You know what's interesting? You've been taught your entire life that if you just work hard enough, if you're just honest enough, if you're just kind enough, the world will reward you. And I'm not here to tell you that's completely false. I'm here to tell you something more uncomfortable. It's incomplete. It's a children's version of reality that keeps you manageable, predictable, and most importantly, compliant. Think about it. Every institution you've ever trusted, your school, your government, your workplace, even your family, has a vested interest in you believing certain things. Not because those things are true, but because those beliefs make you easier to direct. When you believe the world operates on merit, you don't question why incompetent people keep rising. When you believe honesty is always rewarded, you don't notice how strategic silence builds more power than constant truth-telling. When you believe love conquers all, you miss the entire architecture of incentives that actually determines whether relationships survive or collapse. And here's what makes this so painful. You're confused. You're doing everything right according to the rules you were taught, and yet you keep losing. You watch people lie and get promoted. You watch manipulators maintain thriving relationships while your authenticity seems to push people away. You watch corrupt systems flourish while your integrity keeps you stuck in place. And secretly, quietly, you're starting to wonder if maybe you're the problem. You're not. The problem is you've been playing a game where everyone else got a different rule book, and nobody told you. What I'm about to share with you isn't going to make you feel good. It's not going to validate your worldview. It's going to do something more valuable. It's going to give you clarity, the kind of clarity that feels like ice water on a wound. It stings, yes, but it also wakes you up. See, the world doesn't reward virtue. The world rewards strategic virtue. There's a difference, and it's the difference between power and performance. Goodness without the ability to enforce it, protect it, or leverage it is just aesthetics. It's a costume you wear to feel superior, while others who understand the actual mechanics of human behavior shape reality around you. The people you think are winning through evil, most of them aren't immoral. They're just not handicapping themselves with rules that nobody else is following. They understand something you've been conditioned to ignore. Human behavior follows patterns, predictable mathematical patterns, and those patterns don't care about your intentions. They don't care about your values. They care about incentives, consequences, and strategic positioning. This video is going to reveal those patterns. 10 fundamental rules that govern everything from marriages to empires, from friendships to corporations, from personal relationships to geopolitical strategy. Once you see these rules operating, you can't unsee them. You'll watch a conversation between friends and see the invisible negotiation happening beneath the words. You'll watch a political speech and identify exactly which psychological buttons are being pushed. You'll be watching your own behavior and realize how much of what you call authenticity is actually just unexamined conditioning. And here's what I need you to understand before we go further. Learning these rules doesn't make you corrupt. Not learning them makes you a perpetual victim. The choice isn't between being good and being strategic. The choice is between being strategically good or naively good. One changes the world. The other just makes you feel morally superior while the world changes around you without your input. You've been told that understanding power corrupts you. That's a lie designed to keep you powerless. The truth is this: not understanding power doesn't make you noble. It makes you a resource that more strategic people harvest. Your kindness becomes their opportunity. Your honesty becomes their intelligence. Your loyalty becomes their leverage. And you wonder why you're exhausted.
I'm not here to tell you to abandon ethics. I'm here to teach you to stop sabotaging yourself with beautiful principles that you apply while everyone else is playing by different rules. The relief you're going to feel isn't from embracing evil. It's from finally stopping the exhausting performance of pretending the world operates according to kindergarten rules. By the end of this, you're going to stop being shocked by human behavior. You'll recognize patterns instantly. You'll make decisions from clarity rather than reactive emotion. And most importantly, you'll finally separate who you want to be from what actually works. And then you'll get to decide consciously which compromises you're willing to make. That's not cynicism, that's agency. So let me tell you a story. There was once a young prince who inherited a kingdom drowning in corruption. His father had been a weak king, surrounded by officials who enriched themselves while the people starved. On his deathbed, the old king took his son's hand and said, "Rule with love. Be the king I couldn't be. Show them that goodness still has power." The young prince took this to heart. When he ascended the throne, his advisors immediately split into two camps. Half of them said, "Your Majesty, you must purge the corrupt officials immediately. Execute the worst offenders publicly. Show strength. Make them fear you." The other half said, "Your Majesty, move slowly. Build alliances. Win hearts before you demand change. Show wisdom, not brutality." The prince thought long and hard about his father's dying words, "Rule with love. Be different." And so he chose mercy. He kept most of the corrupt officials in their positions, believing that his example would inspire them to change. He spoke openly about his vision for a just kingdom. He was authentic, vulnerable, honest about his intentions. Within a year, those same corrupt officials orchestrated his assassination. Now here's what's important about this story. The prince didn't fail because he was good. He failed because he confused personal virtue with strategic effectiveness. His goodness was real, his intentions were pure, but his understanding of human behavior was catastrophically naive. See, the corrupt officials didn't kill him because they were evil and he was good. They killed him because his predictability made him manageable, and then his reforms threatened their survival. The moment he became both manageable and threatening, his death became rational from their perspective. Not moral, rational. This is what nobody wants to tell you. Human beings don't operate primarily from morality. They operate primarily from incentive structures. And when someone's survival, whether physical, financial, or social, is threatened, their moral calculations shift dramatically. The prince thought he was being the bigger person by choosing patience and mercy. What he actually did was signal that he didn't understand the game being played. He brought philosophical ideals to a survival negotiation, and survival negotiations don't care about your ideals. How many times have you been that prince? How many times have you chosen to be the bigger person and then felt confused when it backfired? How many times have you been honest when strategy demanded silence, or loyal when calculation demanded distance, or forgiving when consequences were required? You know what haunts me about that story? The prince probably died confused. He probably spent his last moments thinking, "But I was good. I did everything right. Why is this happening?" And the tragedy isn't that goodness failed. The tragedy is that he never realized goodness without strategic awareness isn't nobility, it's self-destruction dressed in virtue. Let me give you another way to think about this.
Imagine you have two advisors living inside your head. One speaks in the language you were taught in school: fairness, honesty, trust, transparency, playing by the rules, being authentic. This advisor sounds like your elementary school teacher, your parents at their best, every inspirational movie you've ever watched. The other advisor speaks in a language you were taught to suppress: self-interest, strategic deception, power dynamics, calculated relationships, outcome-focused pragmatism. This advisor sounds like the voice that whispers when someone takes credit for your work. Don't say anything, but remember this. The voice that notices who gets promoted and realizes it has nothing to do with merit.
Most people exile the second advisor. They call that voice cynical, dark, manipulative, corrupt. They push it down, suppress it, pretend it doesn't exist. But here's what actually happens. That advisor doesn't disappear. It doesn't go away just because you've labeled it as bad. Instead, it goes underground. It operates unconsciously, emerging in passive aggression, resentment, confusion about why doing the right thing keeps backfiring. You've felt this, haven't you? That weird cognitive dissonance where part of you knows exactly what's happening in a situation. You can see the manipulation, the politics, the strategic positioning, but another part of you feels guilty for noticing. So you override your strategic instinct with your moral training, and then you're surprised when you get the outcome your strategic instinct predicted. That guilt you feel when you notice your own self-interested impulses, that's not your conscience, that's your conditioning. It's the voice of every authority figure who benefited from your compliance, now living inside your head, making sure you keep handicapping yourself. The most effective people aren't those who silence one advisor. They're the people who let both speak and then consciously choose between them. They can access ruthless clarity about how power actually works, and they can also access genuine compassion and ethical reasoning. And they choose which tool to use based on the situation, not based on which one makes them feel morally superior. What if the darker voice isn't corruption? What if it's the part of you that actually understands how reality works? What if integrating that voice, not exiling it, is psychological maturity? Think about the people in your life who seem to glide through the world while you struggle. I'm not talking about sociopaths. I'm talking about effective people. The ones who maintain thriving relationships, who advance in their careers, who seem to navigate conflict with ease. If you pay close attention, you'll notice something. They're not more moral than you. They're strategic. They understand something about human behavior that you've been trained not to see. And that's what these 10 rules are about. They're not moral guidelines. They're diagnostic tools. They'll show you the invisible architecture that governs all human systems. And once you see it, you'll stop being confused. You might be sad, you might be disillusioned, but you won't be confused. And there's profound freedom in that clarity. So, let's start with the first rule, and I'm warning you now, this is going to be uncomfortable. Rule number 1. Fear is more reliable than love. I know, you hate this already. Every movie, every song, every story you've been told says love conquers all. Love is the strongest force. Love is what matters. And look, I'm not saying love isn't real or powerful. I'm saying it's volatile, conditional, and strategically unreliable. Here's what you were taught. If you're kind enough, generous enough, authentic enough, people will love you, and that love will create loyalty, build relationships through trust and affection, and those relationships will sustain you. Here's what actually happens. People who fear disappointing you stay longer and perform better than people who claim to love you. Love is an emotion. Emotions fluctuate. Fear of consequences is a calculation. Calculations are stable. Think about your own behavior. When have you been most reliable? When someone trusted you to do the right thing because they love you, or when you knew there would be concrete consequences for failure? Be honest. When you love someone but there are no consequences for letting them down, how often do you let them down in small ways? And when someone you're neutral about has the power to affect your life, how reliable do you become?
This is why parents who only use love to guide their children often raise entitled, boundaryless adults. This is why managers who try to be friends with their employees often run dysfunctional teams. This is why nations that rely on goodwill without enforcement mechanisms get taken advantage of. Love without consequence is just sentiment. It's nice, it's warm, but it doesn't create reliable behavior. Fear of loss, fear of consequences, fear of disappointing someone you respect, that creates consistency. Now, I need to be very clear about what I mean by fear. I'm not talking about terrorizing people. I'm not talking about abuse or cruelty. I'm talking about the fear of natural consequences, the fear that if I don't show up, I'll lose something I value, the fear that if I betray this person's trust, they'll actually leave, the fear that if I underperform, there will be real ramifications, not just a disappointed conversation.
The most stable relationships aren't built on unconditional love. They're built on mutual respect and clear consequences. I love you, and if you betray me, I will leave, is more powerful than I love you no matter what. One creates safety through boundaries. The other creates entitlement through lack of accountability. You want to know why you keep getting hurt by people you love? Because you've made yourself consequence-free. You've signaled through your unconditional acceptance that there's no behavior bad enough to lose you. And humans, being humans, will test boundaries until they find them. If you have no boundaries, they'll take everything. Stop trying to be loved. Become someone whose absence people fear. Not because you're cruel, but because you're valuable and you're willing to walk away from people who don't treat you accordingly. Rule number 2. Your reputation is your shadow self. You think reputation is about truth? It's not. Your reputation is what others need to believe about you to process their own feelings. It's the story they tell themselves about you that makes their experience of you make sense. Here's the common belief. Be authentic, be yourself, and your reputation will naturally follow. Just be good, and people will see your goodness. Here's the hidden reality. Your reputation is being written by everyone you interact with in real time, whether you're managing it or not. And they're not writing an accurate description of you. They're writing a character that serves their narrative. When you succeed, people who feel threatened by your success will write you as arrogant or lucky. When you fail, people who feel better about their own stagnation will write you as incapable or foolish. When you set boundaries, people who benefited from your porousness will write you as selfish or difficult. You don't get a say in these stories unless you actively manage them. This is why controlling the narrative matters, not because truth doesn't exist, but because multiple interpretations of truth do exist, and whichever interpretation spreads fastest becomes socially real. Reality is negotiable. Perception is law. Let me give you an example. 2 executives make the same decision to downsize a department. One has managed their reputation carefully. They're known as tough but fair, someone who makes hard decisions for the right reasons. The other has neglected reputation management. They're just known as the boss. Same decision. First person's reputation protects them. Yes, it was painful, but they did what was necessary. Second person gets crucified. See, they never cared about people. The action was identical. The outcome was determined entirely by the pre-existing narrative. You think this is manipulative? The manipulation is already happening. Other people are crafting your reputation right now in every conversation about you that you're not present for. The question isn't whether your reputation will be managed. The question is whether you're going to participate in that management or just hope everyone interprets you generously. Strategic reputation management means understanding that you need different reputations in different contexts. Your family needs to see reliability. Your employer needs to see competence and ambition. Your friends need to see loyalty and vulnerability in carefully measured doses. Your enemies need to see unpredictability and consequence.
One reputation across all contexts is the mark of someone who doesn't understand that different relationships serve different purposes and require different versions of truth. Authenticity is a luxury afforded to people with nothing to lose. Everyone else needs strategy. Rule number 3. Generosity is a form of leverage. Oh, this one makes people angry, because you've been taught that real generosity expects nothing in return. True giving is selfless. Altruism is the highest form of love. And look, on a philosophical level, sure, but we're not having a philosophical conversation. We're having a conversation about how power actually operates in the real world. Here's what actually happens. Every gift creates debt, whether acknowledged or not. Every favor generates obligation, whether spoken or unspoken. The most powerful people don't give randomly. They give strategically, creating chains of obligation that can be called in later. This isn't cynical. This is just honest about human psychology. When someone does something for you, you feel indebted. That feeling of indebtedness influences your future behavior toward them. They don't have to demand repayment. The debt collects interest automatically in the form of loyalty, deference, advocacy, reciprocation.
Watch how powerful people give. They don't give to everyone. They don't give equally. They give to specific people at specific times when that gift will create maximum obligation and minimum expectation of immediate return. They're playing a long game where today's generosity becomes next year's leverage. Now you might be thinking, but I don't want relationships based on transactional obligation. I want genuine connection. Okay, let me ask you this. Do you currently have genuine connection? Or do you have a series of relationships where you give and give and give and then feel resentful when people don't reciprocate, but you can't express that resentment because you're supposed to give selflessly? The person who gives strategically and acknowledges the transactional element is more honest than the person who gives selflessly while secretly keeping score. At least the strategic giver isn't lying to themselves about the dynamic. Here's what this looks like in practice. Never give without calculating what unconscious debt you're creating. I'm not saying you announce this calculation. I'm saying you do it internally. When you help someone, you're making an investment. Sometimes it's a good investment. This person is likely to remember and reciprocate. Sometimes it's a bad investment. This person takes everything and gives nothing. Strategic generosity means investing in people who understand reciprocity and withholding from people who see kindness as weakness. You know what's interesting? The people who complain most about this rule are usually the people who are exhausted from giving to people who never give back. They're performing selflessness while drowning in resentment. And the tragedy is, they think the solution is to give even more selflessly. No, the solution is to give strategically and stop watering dead plants. Rule number 4. Enemies clarify, friends confuse. This is going to sound backwards to you, but stay with me. You've been taught to surround yourself with supporters, to cultivate friendships, to avoid conflict. Build a network of people who love you and your life will flourish. But here's what actually happens. Friends tell you comfortable lies. Enemies reveal uncomfortable truths. Your friends have a vested interest in you staying fundamentally the same, not consciously, not maliciously, but practically. Your friends built a relationship with a version of you. If you change too dramatically, it disrupts the equilibrium of that relationship, so they'll unconsciously discourage change that threatens their understanding of who you are. Have you ever tried to radically transform your life while maintaining your existing friend group? What happened? Did they celebrate your evolution, or did they make little comments designed to pull you back? You're acting different. You've changed. Remember when you used to be fun? These aren't expressions of concern. They're attempts at social regulation. Your enemies, on the other hand, have no investment in your comfort. When someone opposes you, really opposes you, they find every weakness in your position and exploit it. They don't care about your feelings. They care about defeating your argument.
And in doing so, they force you to actually think through your positions rather than relying on sloppy reasoning. The most intellectually rigorous people actively cultivate intelligent enemies, not because they enjoy conflict, but because opposition is the only thing that genuinely tests your thinking. Agreement just confirms your biases. Disagreement forces you to sharpen your logic or change your position. Think about the last time someone you disagreed with made a point that actually challenged you. Didn't you think more carefully after that conversation than after 10 conversations with people who just agreed with you? Your friends make you comfortable. Your enemies make you competent. This is why echo chambers are so dangerous. When everyone around you agrees, you stop testing your ideas. You start confusing consensus for correctness. And then you're shocked when the world doesn't validate your bubble's worldview. I'm not saying to be cruel to your friends or nice to your enemies. I'm saying to recognize the function each serves. Friends provide emotional support and social bonding. Enemies provide intellectual challenge and strategic clarity. You need both, and you need to stop pretending they're the same thing. Rule number 5. Appear weaker than you are. I know, this rebels against every instinct in you, I know. You've been taught to display strength, show confidence, project power, let people know what you're capable of. And there are contexts where that's right, but there are far more contexts where visible strength attracts challengers, while hidden strength surprises them. Think about it. When you show everyone your full capabilities, what happens? If you're in a competitive environment, people adjust. They strategize against your known strengths. If you're in a hierarchical environment, people above you see you as a threat. People at your level see you as a competition. People below you see you as a target.
But when you appear weaker than you are, not incompetent, just less threatening than your actual capability, people underestimate you, and their arrogance becomes your advantage. I learned this watching court politics for years. The advisors who survived the longest weren't the ones who constantly demonstrated their brilliance. They were the ones who made themselves useful without being threatening, competent without being impressive, reliable without being indispensable. They operated below the threshold of other people's threat detection. The most dangerous person in any room is the one nobody's watching, because everyone's focused on the obvious power players, measuring themselves against the visible threats. Meanwhile, the person who appears harmless is moving freely, gathering information, building relationships, positioning strategically. This isn't about being fake. It's about understanding that you don't have to advertise all your capabilities all the time. When you're starting a new job, don't immediately show everything you can do. Let people underestimate you. Exceed expectations gradually. When you're entering a negotiation, don't lead with your strongest position. Let them think they have more leverage than they do. There's a particular skill in this, appearing weak in ways that don't matter while being strong in ways that do. Let people think you're bad at things you don't care about. Let them think you're better at things you want them to focus on. Direct their attention. Manage their perception of your capabilities strategically. You know who understood this perfectly? Every underdog who ever won a competition. They let their opponent get comfortable, confident, even arrogant, and then, when it mattered, they revealed capabilities the opponent hadn't prepared for. The surprise was the weapon. Rule number 6. Never outshine your superior. This is painful because it contradicts everything you've been told about merit and advancement. You've been taught that if you work harder than everyone else, if you're more capable than everyone else, you'll naturally rise. Just be excellent, and excellence will be rewarded. But here's the reality. The person above you is human, and humans feel threatened when someone below them appears more capable. It doesn't matter if they're secure or insecure, conscious or unconscious of this. When you make your boss look less impressive by comparison, you've created a problem that no amount of competence will solve. I've watched brilliant people destroy their careers by being too brilliant in front of the wrong people. They thought they were demonstrating value,
What they were actually doing was triggering threat responses, and threatened people don't promote you, they eliminate you. The skill is this: make your superior look good. Make your contributions visible to them, but attribute success in a way that enhances their reputation. Be indispensable, but not irreplaceable. Be impressive to your superior, but not more impressive than your superior. This feels like you're dimming your light. You're not. You're learning to shine your light in a direction that doesn't blind the person who controls your advancement. It's not about being less capable. It's about being strategic with the visibility of your capabilities. Watch how the people who advance actually behave. They're not the most talented. They're the most politically intelligent. They understand that organizations are fundamentally hierarchical, and hierarchy is maintained through careful calibration of ego and threat. You can be brilliant, but if you make the wrong person feel diminished by your brilliance, you're done. The skill is this: make your superior feel secure, even enhanced by your presence. I learned this from you. This was your vision. I just executed it. I couldn't have done this without your guidance. Is this fake? Maybe. But is it effective? Absolutely. And you have to decide if you want to feel morally superior about your authenticity or actually advance in systems that operate on ego management. Rule number 7. Say less than necessary. You talk too much. I talk too much. Everyone talks too much. We've been socialized to fill silence, to explain ourselves, to make sure everyone understands our reasoning. And every word you speak beyond what's necessary is a weapon you hand to other people. Here's why. The more you reveal, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you become, the more manageable you are. And manageable people don't have power. They have the illusion of participation while actually being directed. Watch powerful people in meetings. They speak rarely, briefly, and only when their words will have maximum impact. Everyone else fills the silence with nervous explanations, justifications, oversharing. And the powerful person absorbs information, watches dynamics, waits. There's a particular kind of power in silence. When you're silent, people project onto you. They assume intelligence, depth, strategic thinking. When you speak constantly, you remove the mystery. You show all your cards. You give people enough information to categorize you, predict you, work around you.
The skill here is learning to say exactly enough to accomplish your purpose and not one word more. Every additional word is risk. Risk that you'll be misinterpreted. Risk that you'll reveal something you shouldn't. Risk that you'll say something that can be used against you later. I'm not talking about being cryptic or withholding to the point of dysfunction. I'm talking about recognizing that you don't owe everyone an explanation for everything. You don't need to justify your decisions to people who aren't affected by them. You don't need to share your reasoning with people who will use it to undermine you. Here's a practice. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is the minimum I can say to achieve my goal here? Then say that and stop. Watch what happens. People will respect you more, not less. They'll lean in to hear what you do say because you've made your words valuable through scarcity. This is especially important in conflict. The person who talks less in an argument often wins, not because they have better points, but because they're not giving ammunition. They're letting the other person exhaust themselves, reveal their emotional state, expose their reasoning. And then they can respond precisely, targeting the actual weak points rather than reacting to everything. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power, waiting for the right moment. Rule number 8. Control the options, not the person. You can't control people. Not really. Not sustainably. Every attempt to directly control another person creates resistance, resentment, and eventual rebellion. But you know what you can control? The options they choose between. This is the difference between force and strategy. Force tries to make someone do something.
Strategy arranges circumstances so that what you want them to do becomes their best available option. Think about how parents control children. Bad parents just command, "Do this," and they get compliance through threat or they get rebellion. Smart parents structure choices. You can do your homework now and have free time tonight, or you can play now and do homework during your free time. Your choice. Same outcome, but the child feels autonomous. This scales to every relationship. You want your employee to work harder? Don't demand it. Structure the incentives so that working harder benefits them more than coasting. You want your partner to prioritize you? Don't guilt them. Make yourself the most valuable, enjoyable, irreplaceable part of their life. The frame is everything. When people feel controlled, they resist. When people feel like they're choosing, they comply. Your job is to architect the choice environment so that their best self-interested decision aligns with your desired outcome. This is how systems control you, by the way. You think you're making free choices, but all your options were pre-selected by someone else. Where you work, what you buy, how you spend your time, you're choosing from menus you didn't write. The powerful write the menus. Everyone else chooses from them and calls it freedom. So the question is, are you going to keep choosing from other people's menus, or are you going to start writing your own? When you write the menu, you win regardless of what people choose. Every option benefits you in different ways. This is what negotiation actually is. It's not about forcing someone to accept your terms. It's about presenting options where all paths lead to acceptable outcomes for you. We can do it my way, or we can do it this other way that I also find acceptable. Your choice. You've controlled the outcome without controlling the person. Rule number 9. Win through actions, not arguments. You've lost count of how many arguments you've won that changed nothing, haven't you? You've proven someone wrong, dismantled their logic, made them look foolish in front of others. And then what happened? Did they change their mind? Or did they just resent you and double down on their position? Here's what nobody tells you. Arguing convinces no one. Arguing just creates defensiveness. The more effectively you argue, the more threatened the other person feels, and threatened people don't change their minds, they fortify their positions. If you want to actually change someone's mind, you need to change their circumstances. Demonstrate through action that your way works. Show results. Let reality argue for you. I'll give you an example. Let's say you work for a company doing things inefficiently. You could write a memo explaining exactly why the current process is stupid and exactly how your process is better. You could present it in a meeting. You could argue passionately, and you'd probably just make enemies while changing nothing.
Or you could quietly start doing it your way in your own domain, produce better results, let people notice. When they ask how you did it, show them. Let them choose to adopt your method because they saw it work, not because you argued them into it. Actions bypass the ego. Arguments trigger it. When you argue with someone, you're essentially saying, "You're wrong and I'm right," and humans will defend being wrong rather than accept that kind of ego injury. But when you demonstrate results, you're not attacking their ego. You're just showing them a better option. They can adopt it and even take credit for it, and everyone wins. This is why movements that actually change things focus on building alternatives rather than arguing about what's wrong with the current system. Show the better way. Make it work. Let people experience the improvement directly. That's how you win. Stop wasting energy on arguments. Start spending energy on demonstrations. Reality is the most persuasive argument there is. Rule number 10. Plan all the way to the end. You know why most people fail? Not because they don't start, because they don't finish. They have energy for the beginning and middle, but they didn't think through the end game. And when you don't plan all the way to the end plans itself, and it's rarely in your favor. Here's what happens. You start a project with enthusiasm. You're 3 steps in and it's going well. Then you hit a complication you didn't foresee, then another,
And because you didn't map out the entire journey, each complication feels like a crisis rather than an expected obstacle. You lose momentum, you lose confidence, you abandon it. Or worse, you succeed at your immediate goal without thinking through what happens after success. You win the argument, but lose the relationship. You get the promotion, but inherit a situation you can't manage. You achieve the goal that looked good from a distance, but makes your life worse up close. Strategic thinking means visualizing the entire chain of consequences before you act, not just what do I want, but what happens after I get what I want, and after that, and after that. Play it forward to the end. If you're starting a business, don't just plan for launch, plan for year 1 problems, year 2 problems. What happens if you succeed beyond your capacity? What happens if you succeed just enough to attract competitors but not enough to dominate? What happens if key people leave? What happens if your initial model doesn't work and you need to pivot? If you're ending a relationship, don't just think about the relief of being out. Think about custody, finances, social circle impacts, housing, dating again, co-parenting if relevant. Think 6 months out, a year out, 5 years out. Is this still the right move when you include all downstream consequences? Most people think in snapshots. They imagine the moment of victory and stop there. Strategic people think in timelines. They see the victory and then immediately start planning for what victory creates. This is how you avoid Pyrrhist victories, wins that cost more than they're worth. This is how you avoid getting what you want and discovering it's a trap. This is how you actually build sustainable success rather than just reaching impressive-looking milestones that collapse under their own weight. Before you start anything significant, ask yourself, if everything goes exactly as I hope, what problems does that create? If everything goes wrong, what's my contingency? What are the 3 most likely complications and how will I handle each one? If you can't answer those questions, you're not ready to begin. The person who plans to the end wins against the person who just plans to start, every time. Now, let me bring all of this together because I know this has been a lot.
You started this video believing, or at least hoping, that the world should work according to fairness and merit, that if you're just good enough, honest enough, hard-working enough, things will work out. And I've spent the last 40 minutes systematically dismantling that belief. But here's what's important. I'm not making you cynical. I'm making you sober. Cynicism is when you see how power works and you give up. You decide that since everything's corrupt, nothing matters. That's not what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you to see how power works so you can decide, consciously, strategically, how you want to engage with it. The relief you might be feeling right now, that's not from embracing evil. That's from finally having language for what you've sensed but been forbidden to name. You've always noticed these patterns. You've always seen the manipulation, the strategic relationships, the gap between what people say and what they do. But you've been trained to suppress that awareness, to call it cynical or paranoid or negative. I'm giving you permission to trust what you see. The world operates on incentive structures and strategic awareness. That's not a moral judgment. It's just accurate observation. Water flows downhill. Humans follow incentives. These are just facts about reality. And here's the paradox that I really need you to understand. Knowing these rules doesn't obligate you to use them ruthlessly. It gives you choice. For the first time, actual choice. Before, you were operating from conditioning. You were being good not because you chose to be good, but because you'd been programmed with rules you never questioned. Now you can see the rules. You can see how they work. You can see when other people are using them against you. And now you get to decide. You can choose strategic vulnerability, being vulnerable in ways that build connection without making you exploitable. You can choose calculated generosity, giving in ways that create genuine reciprocity rather than one-sided extraction.
You can choose when to be ruthless and when to be compassionate based on what the situation actually requires, not based on what some authority figure told you was right. That's the difference between a pawn and a player. Pawns don't know the rules. They just get moved around the board by people who do. Players know the rules. They might not choose to use certain moves because of their own values, but they understand what's possible. They make conscious choices. You are not broken for noticing how power actually works. You are not corrupt for understanding incentives. You are not cynical for refusing to be naive. You are simply, finally, awake. And the awake may occasionally lose. Strategic awareness doesn't guarantee victory, but you know what it guarantees? You'll never lose because you were surprised. You'll never lose because you didn't see it coming. You'll never lose because you were playing by rules nobody else was following. You'll make conscious choices with clear eyes, and whether you win or lose, you'll know why. That's dignity. That's agency. That's actual power. So here's what I want you to do. Not because I need anything from you, but because naming what we've been taught to suppress is how we break its power over us. Leave a comment with one rule that hit differently. Just one. The one that made you uncomfortable in a way that felt like recognition, not rejection. Maybe it's the rule about fear being more reliable than love, and you're thinking about all the relationships where you've made yourself consequence-free. Maybe it's the rule about saying less than necessary, and you're realizing how much ammunition you've handed to people over the years. Whatever it is, write it down. Not for me, for you. Because there's something powerful about externalizing a realization. It makes it real. It makes it something you can't unknow. And if this video gave you the uncomfortable clarity you've been craving, the kind that your friends might call dark, but you recognize as simply real, subscribe, because I'm going to keep making videos like this. Videos that tell you the truth instead of what's comforting. Videos that treat you like an adult who can handle complexity instead of a child who needs protection from reality. Share this with someone who's exhausted from pretending the world is what it's not. You know who I'm talking about. That person who keeps getting hurt by being too nice. That person who keeps wondering why doing everything right keeps leading to wrong outcomes. That person who's starting to suspect they're missing something but doesn't know what. Don't share it because you think they'll thank you. They might actually be angry at first. Waking up is uncomfortable. But share it because you care about them enough to give them the tools for actual power instead of the performance of virtue. The game continues whether you understand the rules or not. Every conversation, every relationship, every workplace, every system. It's all operating according to these patterns right now. The only question is, will you keep playing in confusion, or will you finally pick up the manual everyone else has been reading in secret? You are not naive anymore. You can't unhear this. You can't unsee these patterns now that I've pointed them out. And that might feel heavy right now, but give it time. Eventually, you'll realize that the heaviness isn't from knowing too much. It's from finally setting down the weight of pretending you didn't know what you always knew. Welcome to clarity. It's uncomfortable here, but at least it's real. And you know what's beautiful about real? You can actually build on it. You can't build anything sustainable on lies, even comfortable ones. But truth is solid ground. So take these rules, use them, modify them, reject the ones that don't fit your values. That's your right now. You have the information. What you do with it is your choice. Just remember, choosing not to play strategically is still a strategy. It's just usually a losing one, but it's yours to choose. The world is exactly as ruthless and exactly as beautiful as it's always been. The only thing that changed is now you can see it clearly. And seeing clearly is the first step to moving powerfully. Good luck out there. You're gonna need it. But now at least, you'll understand why.